So, take the fucking Yeezy slides off. Let's see here. Who here has heard of DIY music? I can see you raising your hand at home. I feel as though, okay, anytime I hear anybody talk about like DIY music, like on the internet or like DIY scene, they never really define what that is. Like, of course, like DIY means do it yourself, and like that translated into like an artistic environment means that you make the art yourself, and when it comes to showcasing that art, you do it yourself, like not funded or brought up by like private companies or businesses or you know, stuff like that. If you don't have the means to promote your art, you promote it yourself however you can. If you don't have the means to like play a big venue, if you're a musician, for example, then you play a show wherever you can. You set up like at your house or at your friend's house or whatever. If you don't have like a bunch of fancy, expensive recording equipment to record music, or you can't pay for any expenses that come with making any form of art, you get whatever you can, however you can, and make whatever you can with it, or you raise the money however you can. And that's a really good philosophy, like morally, because the creation of art shouldn't be locked behind like a paywall. You know, back in like the artistic Renaissance, not that I know anything about art history, wealthy individuals would fund the creation of art by sponsoring artists. They would in turn create art in their image, but it also just like if you're a painter and you're painting a bunch of paintings all the time, then, you know, fuck it, I'll paint a portrait of the guy who gave me 1,000 quid, no big deal. Then, you know, the art market sort of like, you know, existed, and then the art as a good to be bought and sold sort of like fucked with the public's perception of like the value of art. Now we have NFTs, so yeah. Moral of the story, thanks capitalism for ruining everything like you always do. Where was I at? That's gonna happen a lot. Anytime I hear anybody talk about the DIY music scene, about a DIY music scene, about DIY art, about DIY music on the internet, they never really like define what that is. The DIY before DIY was indie, you know, musicians creating music independently from like big record labels, and that was possible due to like the advent of new technology that allows like easier recording of music for cheaper. You don't need like gigantic expensive tape equipment that requires like a technician who's been trained for life to operate. You can just plug your guitar into your computer. That's a lot easier and a lot more affordable and a lot more accessible. Nowadays, I feel as though like indie isn't a descriptor, it's like a genre, you know? Like if I say the word indie music, there's going to be bands that come to mind and there are going to be bands that don't come to mind, but by technical definition, they should both be indie because they're independent. Due to like music corporations needing words to like attach to the products they're selling to easily sell them to people, because you need fancy buzzwords to get the point across about what product you're selling, like as simply as possible, so even a simpleton walking down the street can understand what that is and then pay for it with money. Indie became a really easy word to use for that reason, because not because like people really think that indie music is like cool and I will pay money for it, but because there were a lot of indie musicians coming up. That's how people like, that's how the word indie became part of the zeitgeist, because there were a lot of indie musicians, because it's fun and cool and easy to make music by yourself. Now indie means nothing. Like I've said it a million times and now it means nothing to me at all. So I can't imagine how little it means in the grand scope of the world after like decades of usage. We needed like another word to describe this process, and DIY became the word to use. But I feel as though now the same thing is happening. Like it's just starting to happen. Keep your eye out. There's a lot of, especially in like the emo genres, Midwest emo was like a resurgence of like the commercial viability of emo music. Like like the third wave with like Fall Out Boy, Panic at the Disco, like At the Drive-In, Alex is on Fire, or is it Alexis on Fire? I never knew that. And then of course like metalcore and scene bands like Attack Attack and Pierce the Veil, etc., etc. That was like the height of emo's commercial popularity, and that's probably what you like think of when you hear the word emo, is you think of like scene kids. I don't think the fourth wave and emo revival and the Midwest emo renaissance matched that levels of like commercial viability, but like it was a good spike in popularity, I think. These genres started to come up at the same time as this term of DIY music. So they just go hand in hand together now, and you'll probably see a lot of like open tuning, Twinkle Daddy, Midwest emo, sparkle punk, emo revival, fourth wave, mom jeans, dad hat, cuff pants, white socks, Converse wearing fucking emo people making emo music with the DIY label, because I don't know. Where was I going with that? Throw away all of the current like cultural context of the word DIY and just look at it like by definition, functionally. Like DIY music and DIY art and the DIY scene like still exists, and it always will, no matter what it's going to be called. Things got really weird when the pandemic started, you know, what with everybody not being able to go outside for fear of their own physical health. I wonder when that stopped, because it did stop the worrying, not the threats of physical health damage. The virus still exists. But it became really hard, of course, for live music events to happen. So the DIY community really suffered from that. So there became like a vacuum where all of these artists, all of these musicians suddenly had nowhere to share their art. And like, you know, if a tree falls down in the forest and there's no one around to hear it, does it really make a sound? It's a good question. Is the answer yes? Are you sure about that? The only way for artists to continue making art was to flock to the internet, because the internet is this amazing invention where anybody on the entire planet with access to it can access the entirety of the world's knowledge in a literal instant at any time, whenever they want, for free. And that's a crazy amount of power, and I don't think we think about that enough. But regardless, communication is a big thing with the internet, you know, social media and whatnot, websites like YouTube and Twitch, and currently websites like, or platforms like TikTok and Instagram and Twitter make it really easy for people to talk to each other in good ways or bad. But of course, the thing about the internet is that it's not real and it doesn't exist, whereas real life is real and it exists. But when you spend literal years and the entirety of like your artistic purpose in a place that isn't real and doesn't exist, talking to people, I say talking because that's the language that's used, but that's not even correct. Like, you don't talk to people on the internet, you text people on the internet, you talk to your phone, you make videos of yourself where most of the time you probably don't even talk. You hand pick and select only the greatest and best moments of your life in perfect little snapshots to show the world, and then let people judge you, and then you base the entirety of your being on those judgments. And I'm just taking a wild guess here, but when you spend years doing that during a time where it is impossible to go outside and communicate with people in the real world, that is bad. Current day is 2022, and I feel as though DIY music is just starting to really pick back up. It has been over the course of this past year, very slowly, but as of right now, I see, I mean, it's growing more and more every day. There's more venues than there were a year ago. I don't see people wearing masks. I don't think that's a good thing, but I don't hear about people dying a lot. We're picking up the pieces, to say the least. I can't help but look at a lot of DIY music events at DIY music spaces and feel as though that real world connection that used to be there is still there. I don't think it is. Not in the same way. Okay, hang on, I'm getting somewhere. Gotta drink this. I'm drinking Vimto. It's this Arab juice mix, and you cut it with water, and it's berry flavored, and it's really delicious, and I like it. Okay, let's rewind several years. Young me was in high school in my first band. We sucked, but it was cool. You know, we were children. I was like, let's say I was like 15 or 16. I went to my very first DIY house show. I grew up in Newark, Delaware, and that entire town is basically built around University of Delaware campus. If you don't know anything about University of Delaware, last I heard they're trying to be an Ivy League school. Good luck with that. But they're also referred to as one of the biggest party schools in the country. So there's a lot of college-age kids who are looking to have fun. Every year there's a lot of students coming in from all across the world. They're plopped down in the poor state of Delaware. I feel very sorry for them. There isn't much to do there. A lot of people don't even know that Delaware is a state. It is, by the way. When you get bored and smart Generation Z college kids all congregating in one place where there's nothing else to do, they get creative. And that has helped uplift, in my experience, one of the coolest, most tight-knit, productive, and active DIY art scenes, at least out of all that I have experienced. So the very first DIY house show that I went to was right next to UD campus. I was friends with these kids at my high school who were seniors when I was a freshman, and they had a punk band, and they hosted the open mic night at my high school that like nobody else went to at the time. They were very, very, very passionate about their politics and about their art and their creativity, and that was really inspiring, and they were really encouraging to me, even though I was ass and garbage at music. And at the time, I thought that being good at music was the only way to have fun at playing music, and that's not true. So seeing these people like validate me for reasons other than my like capability was very cool and encouraging. So I saw their band play. I was like 15, and I went to some college kid's house, and they were like really, really confused. Up until that point, the only places I had ever experienced live music were at spaces that could accommodate live music, like realistically. So to come to this like rundown house and like go into the basement where like these college kids who are broke are like throwing a show as if it's like fucking Madison Square Garden, I was like, you can do that? You can just do that and no one will care and people will have fun, and you don't need a ton of money, and you don't need like all the resources in the world to have a great like cool event. Wow, that's really awesome. I like that a lot. The commonality between all of my favorite DIY music events that I have ever played or been to in Delaware, well actually they all just happen to be in Delaware, they all gave me the same feeling, and that feeling is to exist in a space with a bunch of people, some of which you know and love dearly, and some of which you've never spoken to or looked at before ever in your life, and you're sharing a moment together. And in this moment, all of the walls between identities, between performer and beholder, between musician and regular person, they all melt away. And there's a moment in time where you're all just existing together, feeling the same feeling and sharing the same memory. And that's the shit. I love that. I love that so much. And I think that anecdote is very important because I have yet to feel that feeling again. From the house shows that I have been to post-pandemic. Not to say that I haven't had a good time or they have been bad. Things are different, and it's hard to say exactly what it is or exactly why it's different, but things are different. There's a different feeling happening. Now I live in Philadelphia, a much more populated place than Newark, Delaware. Whereas in Newark, Delaware, the amount of active bands or musicians I could probably count on both my hands. In Philadelphia, there's too many to count. I, like, personally was acquainted with every native Delaware, like, band in the Delaware DIY scene. In Philly, I can't even scrape the top of the iceberg. In some ways, that's like a great thing, because a lot of art and a lot of music being made and shared with a lot of people is really cool and awesome. But in a different way, I propose this way of thinking, and please do not think of it as pessimistic. Just consider it for a second. Have you ever heard of choice paralysis? It's the principle that it's harder to make a decision with a lot more choices than it is to make a decision with fewer choices. Logically, you would think that more choices mean you will get a better outcome. You would be more satisfied with that outcome. But with more choices and only one of them to pick, there come a lot more opportunities for disappointment, for feeling like you've missed out. With fewer options to pick from, let's say 3 flavors of ice cream, and you pick one, you're not going to feel like you're missing out that much, because 2 other flavors of ice cream is like no big deal at all. You'll get to them eventually. But fucking 99 other flavors, there's no way I'm ever going to get those, and I'm going to spend an hour looking at the menu, and I'm not even going to feel great about the one that I picked, because that number is just too large for me to grasp. I think a similar thing happens when there's more going on than the framework of your mind can, like, see at once. If I were to, like, devote all of my time to, like, discovering musicians and artists in the city, I probably still wouldn't know all of them after a year, because more would be coming in faster than I would be discovering them. A lot of people really like completing things. Things that are whole feel good and satisfactory. If you were to think of all of the art in the city as like a to-do list or a scavenger hunt or whatever, if I were to see the list laid out before me, I wouldn't even look at it. I wouldn't even give a shit. I would say, hell no, I'm not even attempting to go through all of that. Even though I could randomly pick one, I don't have to go through all of them. Who cares if I'm seeing all of the art in the city? Like, nobody is ever seeing all of the art happening anywhere. But as a creator, it's much easier to connect with other creators when the few amount of you are all that you have. But when there's like a million other options for like people to network with and like places to promote the things that you are making, you're not going to feel as satisfied with the ones that you pick, because deep down in your unconscious mind, you're going to be afraid of what you're missing out. Okay, I'm turning on this fan because it's hot as fuck. If it makes noise, I don't care. So remember when I was talking about the internet and the effects of living on the internet during the pandemic as an artist and a musician and a creator? That set up a lot of expectations. That caused people to rewrite in their brains the way they think about like connecting with people and communicating and like discovering new and interesting things. I'm talking about art, but I'm leaving this language broad so you can apply it to whatever sort of thing in your life is happening. But I'm talking about music. I'm talking about just music. Art, too, I guess. I'm just a musician, you know, it's whatever. I don't know how this applies to like painting or sculpting or glass blowing, so sorry, but hopefully it applies. The sheer quantity of other artists existing in one place, this place not being the city, as I was just talking about, but on a much larger scale, that is the internet, which is all of the world and then some. it was a lot. There were a lot of artists. Suddenly, every single artist from all across the entire world were thrown into one big virtual room together and told, now try and make it, punk. And that was a lot of pressure. I think that caused a lot of choice paralysis for creators and for, like, consumers, listeners, fans, beholders. I use that word, beholders. I kind of like it. This air is feeling nice. Hell yeah, I recommend this. Vimto time. The competition was more difficult. And it sucks that there even is competition when it comes to promoting art, as if, like, your talent and ability and, like, your experiences that you put into physical form is, like, a commodity to be, like, exchanged for things, which isn't true, but that's for some reason the way it's set up in this capitalist society. So, thanks, capitalism. Again. So I think just during the time of the pandemic, artists got defensive. They were clinging on to whatever it is they could grab hold of because it was all that they had. And I definitely don't fault anyone for succumbing to the belief that you have to be good at the internet to survive as an artist. Define survive. If you wish to make money off of your art, then yes, I'm sorry, but to make art? No. You do not. You do not need to be good at the internet. All the time, I will see on my TikTok feed banned TikTok accounts that post the same, guess which one of us is the real drummer, or here's each of our favorite songs, or personality-based content. The amount of that is staggering. You've definitely seen it too. I know you have, and chances are you've probably made that kind of content. That's fine. It's fine. I get it. It's cool. Don't worry. I'm not judging you. But it is really disheartening when I see videos of artists. This is a trend for a little bit, and I have some saved. Some TikToks saved. I saw TikToks of artists going like, when you just want to make music, but you have to make stupid TikToks for the algorithm to pick you up in order to make a living. I fucking hate this shit. I hate it here. This sucks. I'm not having any fun. And it's like, bro, you don't have to do that. It's okay. I'm sorry. You don't have to do that. You can stop. You can stop doing that. I will not hold that against you. It's chill, please. I beg of you. It really makes me, like, uncomfortable, like, sad when I see, like, all of these musicians making influencer content. Like, compare, like, a video from, like, the Hype House to a video about a band. They're identical. Being an influencer is an entirely different skill set than being a musician. Remember how I said that what you post on social media are perfect little hand-picked pieces of your life that you choose to share with people and then be judged upon? Yeah, the key thing about that is you choose what people see. That means everything you see on the internet is something that somebody has chosen for you to see. You will never, ever see, like, a genuine, real, human, boring, regular, normal moment on the internet. It's not like a bad thing per se, but it's not a good thing per se. And this applies to musicians. What decides what gets popular on the internet? The answer is the algorithm, the invisible, identityless line of code that is different for every website and social media platform and company in the ether. The algorithm decides the fate of all. At least they decide what you see when you open up an app on your phone. It's not that big of a deal. But again, when you're on the internet all the time, and you have no choice but to be, during the pandemic, your human brain that is not meant to be seeing internet life will look at internet life through the same lens as real life. That creates expectations that can never, ever, ever be met. What that means for musicians is that you see a video of a guitar player playing a cool lick and it's trending on the front page of flibly.com. And then you scroll and you see another, 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 rinse and repeat for 5 hours a day. You will see how popular those videos are and think, I have to be like that in order to be popular. But again, it's internet popular. It's algorithmically suitable. That does not mean it's like unequivocally good. That just means that it happened to catch people's attention for more than a few seconds and will in turn make people use the platform more and earn the company more money. Which is why I am not a fan of art existing on the internet. At the very least, I prefer my consumption of art in real life because I'm a human and you are too, and you'll probably like it better too. But not everybody has the luxury of seeing art in real life. A lot of people don't have a choice, and that's really disheartening and dystopian, and I don't like that. And that makes me afraid. Vimto time. So what's the state of DIY music now? In Philly, I see a lot of people like my friends and artists, my friends who are artists, they'll tell me that a lot of what they see in Philly is like cliquey, exclusive, and people who don't feel as though they're willing to connect with others. I don't know why. I don't think it's malevolence. I think a lot of it is fear. Connecting with people's hard. Especially after not having done so for like multiple years, people aren't used to doing this again, to doing art in person again. Even though you see it a lot now, it's not the same as it used to be, and it'll take a long time for it to get to the way that it used to be. A lot of the house venues that I have been to within the last year, or seen, or have like witnessed in discussion, or seen on the internet, I'm guilty of it too, I use the internet. I'm not perfect. The unifying factor between all of them in the way that they are managed and run and organized, and I feel as though this is represented by individual artists as well, is that the art they're making, the art they're showing, the experiences that they are producing for people are meant to presently satisfy the individual. What does that mean? That makes sense to me. I don't know if I can explain that better. I see a lot of parties. I see a lot of events where people get fucked up and want to like forget about their current circumstances of the world, because I admit it is kind of nightmarish, and just sort of detach, indulge in some pleasures for once. You're not a bad person if you do that. As if I'm some sort of grand decider of morality. What the fuck do I know? Okay, the quantity of bands that like exist in the city, I'm not that familiar with what the scene was like in the city before the pandemic because I only lived here for a year prior. The DIY events that I see being organized now, there's very few like unifying factor between the bands. There's very few reason for congregation other than just to have a good time. A lot of actually all of the house shows that I had, or DIY events that I had been to in Delaware, were either optional cover charge for touring bands so that they could pay for gas money, or for some sort of charity or food drive or fundraiser of some sort. The reason for congregation in the house shows of yesteryear, it was for the future benefit of the many. Not for the momentary, whatever it was I said before. Not for the, fuck. It's fine, whatever, you know what I meant. You know what I said. It was for the community. It was for us as a people. It was to gather people together and provide us all with that one experience together. It was to share your emotions and your feelings in the form of your art with people, free from judgment. That resulted in people having a good time, but in some regard, there was somebody involved whose intentions weren't for people to have a good time. And that sounds really weird to say you shouldn't intend for people to have a good time, because if everything goes right, that should happen regardless, okay? If you focus on that, that's all you're going to get. You need to focus on more. People are going to have a good time as long as you just care about the thing you're making, the event you're putting on. In order for real connection to occur within the DIY scene again, there has to be instances of decisions being made with the purpose of benefiting the many. Whatever that means, whatever that looks like, I'm not sure anymore, but that feels right in my heart, okay? I'm afraid I can't explain that very well, very much beyond that, but I feel that in my heart that sounds like a right answer. So if that sounds right to you as well, run with it. If it doesn't, don't. I'm just some guy. I don't know what I'm talking about, all right? But even some guy should have his opinion be considered. If you are a DIY venue anywhere in the world, not just in Philadelphia, I would recommend hosting your shows as follows. Dry venue. No alcohol, no drugs. Earlier shows. Start at 7. Let people get out the door and be in home by 10 at the latest. Shorter sets. You don't need to have 5 bands playing for an hour, okay? People are going to be satisfied and probably have a better and more comfortable time with more intentional and focused displays of art. It'll be easier on the performers. It'll be easier on the attendees. The attenders? Huh. Make sure that your space is physically, emotionally, and mentally safe. If you are playing in a basement, lay down rugs or carpets. If you have metal pipes in your ceiling like I do, go to Home Depot and get foam pipe coverings so that people don't hit their head and become concussed. Make sure there's proper lighting. The string lights are really popular. Spotlights are popular. LEDs, color programmable, go nuts. But make sure people can see stuff. Make sure there isn't mold, dirt, dead animals or bugs in your basement. I feel bad that I have to say that, but please clean up. Like, it'll make people happier, and you probably won't get a mold infection in your lung. Be wheelchair accommodating if you can. A lot of houses have stairs, so that's hard, but if you have a free day, build a ramp, okay? Get a pallet, and then get like a sheet of wood from Home Depot. You're not hearing it from me, but I heard through the grapevine that Home Depot is not allowed to stop you from walking out the door with stuff because their employees don't get paid enough and it's too much of a hassle. They might ask you, do you want to pay for that? And you can say no, and they're not going to do anything. That's why a lot of their stuff is outside on display, because they can afford to lose it. Don't feel bad by stealing from companies. They can afford it. Build ramps. Get handy. Okay? And then the most important thing is to meet and talk to and connect with every person who is coming into your house, okay? That might sound difficult for introverts or people with social anxiety, but the very nature of hosting an artistic event in your house is social. So somebody has to be good at it. It is very good to know every person who is in your domicile to make sure that everyone is safe, that there isn't anybody there who can cause harm or discomfort to other people, because one bad apple spoils the bunch. And also, just for you as a person, like, you are going to make a lot of friends. Like, you are all people who are here in this space together for the same reason, to see music and have a good time. So that's already something to talk about, all right? So that way, when those same people show up for the next show, which they'll be likely to because they're your friends and they know you and they like you, hopefully, they will have an even better time the next time. They might even bring some of their friends along, and you will meet them, and they will meet each other. Hopefully, avalanche effect, no matter where you are in the world, whether it's a densely populated city or a backwoods, bumfuck nowhere town, you will hopefully have created a safe, comfortable, little pocket community that can actually help each other. It's really, really easy to feel better by disconnecting from the world and getting fucked up, getting really high and getting really drunk, and then engaging in hedonistic pleasures that only benefit you in the moment. It's really easy to do and it's really fun. I get it. It's a lot more work to play the long game and like connect with people as humans. It's difficult and it's not fun at first, but it is better for you and better for the world overall to be nice and make friends and care. I think that maturity is defined by how you make decisions that are meant to pay off in the future before you make decisions that pay off in the present. Seeing as I am 22 years old and a lot of the people I'm speaking to right now are probably young adults or old adults, please be mature. Behave. Or so help me, I will turn this car around. Ninetail out.